The winter wind slashed through every corner of the city like a knife. Thick, dark clouds pressed heavily against the sky, as if icy rain could fall at any moment. On a quiet, nearly deserted street, a homeless boy named Ethan hunched over, struggling to move forward. His worn-out cotton coat was full of holes and couldn't block the freezing cold. His feet, numb from the cold, were exposed through the torn shoes he wore. Ethan's stomach had been growling for hours. He hadn't eaten anything all day. His eyes scanned the street desperately, searching every trash can, food stand, any possible place where he might find something to eat. As he passed a dimly lit corner, a flash of light caught his eye. He walked closer and saw a wallet lying on the ground. Its leather was smooth, and the metal clasp gleamed under the faint light. It was clearly expensive. Ethan's hand trembled as he reached for it. Countless thoughts raced through his mind. Maybe there was enough money inside to feed him for days. Maybe he could even buy a warm coat. But he remembered what his mom had always told him: never take something that isn't yours. Still, the hunger and cold made the decision nearly impossible. After a moment of hesitation, Ethan picked up the wallet. He held it tightly, as if it were his only hope in this cold, unforgiving world. He hid in a corner, shielded from the wind, and nervously opened the wallet. Inside was a thick stack of cash. Ethan had never seen so much money in his life. His hands began to shake. Then, as he flipped through the contents, a photograph slipped out. He picked it up, and for a moment, he couldn't breathe. It was a young woman, smiling brightly, her eyes full of warmth. It was his mother, the face he had longed to see every day and night. That photo had once been his most treasured possession, always carried close to his heart. But somewhere during his time on the streets, it had been lost. He thought he'd never see her face again. Yet now, here it was, returned to him in the most unexpected way. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. With his dirty hands, he gently touched his mother's face in the photo, as if he could feel her warmth again. Memories came rushing back. His mother telling him bedtime stories, holding him as he fell asleep. But he couldn't understand. How did her photo end up in this wallet? What secret was hiding behind it? Ethan hugged the wallet and photo tightly to his chest. In his heart, he silently made a vow. I have to find out the truth behind all this. Ethan sat in the corner of the wall, his heart full of conflict. The money inside the wallet was a huge temptation. With it, he could buy lots of food, find a warm place to stay, and finally end this life on the streets. But his mother's photo wouldn't let him take the money with a clear conscience. He remembered how she always taught him to be honest and kind, to be a person of integrity. After a long and painful inner struggle, Ethan finally made a decision. He would look for the wallet's owner. He believed that only by finding the person who lost it could he uncover the truth behind the photo of his mother. Ethan carefully put away the wallet and the picture, then began asking around for any clues. He questioned street vendors and passers-by, but everyone shook their heads. They didn't know anything. Ethan didn't give up. He went from store to store along the street, asking the same question, even when people grew annoyed and drove him away. He stayed determined. As the sky darkened and the city lights came on, Ethan grew colder and hungrier, but his determination didn't waver. At last, in front of a coffee shop, a kind waiter told him the wallet might belong to a man named Mr. William Grant, the owner of a nearby company who often visited that area. The next morning, Ethan arrived early outside the building the waiter had mentioned. He stood there nervously, watching people in suits and polished shoes enter and leave the office tower. They all looked busy and important, in stark contrast to his own ragged clothes. Ethan gathered his courage and stopped everyone who looked like a boss, asking if they had lost a wallet. Time passed until around noon, when a sleek black car pulled up. A confident-looking middle-aged man stepped out. Ethan noticed the man was holding a phone case exactly like the one that had been in the wallet. Hope rose in his heart. He hurried forward and asked shyly, "Sir, did you lose a wallet?" The man paused and looked Ethan up and down, then checked his pocket. His face changed instantly. Seeing that, Ethan quickly took out the wallet and handed it to him. "Sir, I found this. Please check if it's yours." The man took the wallet, opened it, and checked the contents. The cash and ID were still inside. A small smile of relief appeared on his face. "Yes, this is mine. Thank you, young man." Ethan watched as the wallet was returned to its owner, but he felt a strange emptiness inside. After a brief hesitation, he pulled out the photo of his mother. "Sir," he said, "there's also this photo in the wallet. Do you know anything about it?" Ethan asked. Mr. William Grant took the photo and looked at it carefully, his brow furrowing. After a moment, he shook his head. "I've never seen this picture before. It's not mine." Ethan's heart sank. He had hoped Mr. Grant could give him answers, but once again he found nothing. Seeing the disappointment in the boy's face, Mr. Grant felt a wave of curiosity. He decided to sit down and talk with Ethan to hear his story. Mr. Grant looked at Ethan's worn-out clothes and determined eyes. There was something about the boy that stirred his sympathy. "Don't worry, kid. Why don't you tell me about the photo? Maybe I can help you find some answers," he said gently. Ethan looked up, a glimmer of hope shining in his eyes. He began to tell Mr. Grant everything. His life on the streets, how much the photo of his mother meant to him, how he'd lost it, and just found it again in this wallet. Mr. Grant listened in silence. As Ethan described his mother's appearance, a strange feeling began to rise in Mr. Grant's heart. He leaned forward and asked urgently, "What was your mother's name?" "Emily Dawson," Ethan replied. Mr. Grant's body tensed. That name hit him like a key, unlocking a door that had been shut for years. Suddenly, memories flooded back. He was a young man in college when he met a girl named Emily Dawson. They had walked together through tree-lined paths, sharing their dreams and secrets. Her smile, so warm and bright, was just like the woman in Ethan's photo. But time and family disapproval had driven them apart. Misunderstandings had followed, and eventually they lost contact. Now, staring at Ethan, Mr. Grant felt a deep connection forming in his heart. He began to suspect something incredible. Looking into the boy's eyes, he quietly made a promise to himself. He would help Ethan find the truth. "Ethan, don't worry," he said softly. "I'll help you find out everything about this photo. But first, come with me. There's somewhere I'd like to take you." Ethan hesitated, then slowly nodded and followed Mr. Grant into his car. As the car sped through the city streets, Ethan sat quietly, his heart full of nerves and hope. He didn't know what lay ahead, but something inside told him it would change everything. Mr. William Grant brought Ethan to his study, a quiet room filled with books, documents, and old photographs from his younger days. He walked over to a bookshelf, opened a hidden drawer, and took out an old photo album. Slowly, he flipped it open. Inside were many pictures of him and Emily Dawson when they were young, smiling brightly, their eyes full of hope for the future. As Ethan looked at the photos, a strange feeling rose in his heart. The woman in the pictures looked somewhat like his mother, but not exactly the same. Mr. Grant pointed at one of the photos and began to tell Ethan the story. He explained that Emily was a kind, gentle, and talented young woman. They had loved each other deeply, but because of differences in their family backgrounds, his parents strongly disapproved of their relationship. After a painful argument, Emily left, heartbroken, and they lost contact ever since. Ethan listened quietly, his mind full of questions. If what Mr. Grant said was true, why had his mother never spoken of it? And how did her photo end up in Mr. Grant's wallet? Sensing Ethan's confusion, Mr. Grant continued, "Ethan, I don't know how your mother's photo got into my wallet either, but I have a feeling there's a big secret behind all of this. We need to find more clues to uncover the truth." Ethan nodded. He made up his mind to work with Mr. Grant to uncover the mystery behind the photo. As their search continued, Mr. Grant's suspicions grew stronger. A thought had begun to take root in his heart. Ethan might be his and Emily's child. The idea both excited and scared him. If it was true, he finally had a chance to give the love he had never been able to give. But he was also nervous. How would he face this truth? How would his family react? Mr. Grant decided to keep this suspicion to himself for the time being. He needed more proof. Quietly, he started reaching out to old classmates and friends, trying to find any trace of Emily. At the same time, he discreetly gathered some information about Ethan, planning to get a DNA test when the time was right. Ethan had no idea what Mr. Grant was thinking. He was still focused on uncovering the mystery behind the photo of his mother. Every day, he followed Mr. Grant through the city, searching for any clue that might lead them to the truth. As they continued searching for clues, the journey was difficult, but Ethan's heart remained full of hope. Meanwhile, Mr. Grant's family began to notice something was off. His wife, Linda, observed that he had been distracted lately, lost in thought, spending more time away from home, and returning later each night. She began to suspect that he was hiding something from her. One day, while cleaning the study, Linda accidentally discovered the old photo album and the picture of Ethan's mother, Emily Dawson. A wave of unease swept through her. When Mr. Grant came home, she confronted him, holding the album and the photo in her hands. Mr. Grant froze. He knew the truth could no longer be hidden. Taking a deep breath, he decided to tell her everything, his past with Emily and Ethan's unexpected appearance. As Linda listened, her face turned pale. She couldn't accept it. To her, this felt like a betrayal of their marriage, their family. The two of them got into a heated argument. Tension filled the house like a thick cloud. Ethan, still out searching for answers, had no idea that a much bigger storm was beginning to brew. After Mr. Grant confessed, the atmosphere at home dropped to freezing. Linda's face was full of anger. Her eyes wide, she stared at her husband like he was a stranger. "You've kept this from me for years, and now there's a child? How are we supposed to face anyone now?" Her voice trembled, shaking with both fury and heartbreak, echoing through the spacious living room. Mr. Grant tried to explain, stepping toward her, but she raised her hand sharply to stop him. "All these years of marriage, and you throw it all away? What are you planning to do with that woman and the boy? Bring them into our lives and destroy our family?" She broke down in tears, hurling the photo album onto the floor. The pictures scattered everywhere. Mr. Grant looked at the memories now lying in pieces, his heart full of helplessness and guilt. "I only just found out," he said quietly, sincerely. "I never meant to betray you or this family. Ethan is innocent. He's just a poor child looking for his mother." But Linda wouldn't hear it. "Innocent? And what about us? What about me and the kids? Do we just have to accept this? You need to cut all ties with them, right now. Pretend this never happened," she said, her voice cold and final. Her tone left no room for argument. Mr. Grant found himself caught in an impossible situation. On one side was his wife of many years and their beloved children, and on the other the son he had just discovered. He couldn't bear to lose either. Their argument grew more intense. The house staff stayed far away, afraid to get involved. The children, hearing the shouting from their rooms, huddled together in fear. Mr. Grant was exhausted. He knew this situation couldn't be easily resolved. His family had been swept into a storm, and he had to find a way to calm it. While tensions at home continued to rise, Ethan returned to the temporary apartment Mr. Grant had arranged for him. He was tired, but his heart still held on to hope. As he opened the door, he noticed an envelope wedged in the crack. It had no name on it. The paper was yellowed, looking old. Curious, Ethan opened it. Inside was a crumpled letter, the handwriting uneven and rushed. The letter read, "Child, if you want to know the truth behind your mother's photo, go quickly to Willow Creek on the outskirts of the city. Look for an old woman named Grandma Rose. She knows everything. Tell no one about this." Ethan's heart pounded with excitement. This might be the key to the mystery. He hesitated, unsure whether to tell Mr. Grant. On one hand, he feared the letter would only add more stress to Mr. Grant's already troubled family. On the other, he worried it could be a trap. But in the end, his desire for answers won. He packed a few things and, under the cover of night, quietly slipped out. He began the long journey toward Willow Creek. Along the way, Ethan stayed alert, avoiding attention, afraid someone might be following him. The city lights faded behind him as he entered the dark outskirts. The cold wind howled, and Ethan shivered, but he didn't turn back. After hours of walking, just before dawn, he finally caught sight of the town in the distance. Willow Creek was peaceful and old-fashioned, with neat little houses lining the cobblestone streets. Following the instructions in the letter, Ethan asked around about Grandma Rose. Most people looked at him with curiosity, but a few kind locals pointed him in the right direction. At the edge of town, Ethan found a small, weathered cottage. He gently knocked on the door. After a short pause, an elderly woman with white hair opened it. Her eyes were deep and full of stories. The moment she saw Ethan, a complex look flashed across her face. "You must be Ethan," she said softly. "Come in." The old woman spoke softly, her voice raspy but carrying a familiar warmth. Ethan stepped into the small yard, his heart full of questions. Grandma Rose invited him to sit down, then slowly began to speak. Child, your mother, Emily Dawson, did love Mr. Grant. They truly loved each other, but his family strongly opposed their relationship. After a terrible argument, Emily found out she was pregnant. She was afraid that staying would force Mr. Grant to turn against his family, so she left quietly, on her own. Ethan listened intently, his eyes gradually filling with tears. What happened after that? Why didn't my mom ever tell me any of this? He asked anxiously. Grandma Rose sighed. After leaving, Emily came to this town. She gave birth to you here and raised you alone. Life was very hard for her, but she never regretted her decision. She never told you the truth because she didn't want you caught up in the pain of the past. She just wanted you to grow up happy and safe. As for how her photo ended up in Mr. Grant's wallet, I don't know either. Maybe it was fate. Ethan's heart was overwhelmed with emotion. He had finally learned something about his mother's past, but it left him even more confused. He didn't know how to face all of it, or how to explain any of it to Mr. Grant and his family. After leaving Grandma Rose's house, Ethan walked to the riverbank that ran through the quiet town. He sat there for a long time, watching the gentle flow of the water, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. He now understood the truth about his past. Mr. Grant was his real father. But his sudden appearance had shaken a once peaceful family to its core. Ethan thought about the kindness Mr. Grant had shown him, the quiet, sincere care that felt like true fatherly love. After years of loneliness, that warmth had meant everything to him. But he had also seen the pain and anger in Mrs. Grant's eyes. He knew his presence had caused this family to suffer. His heart struggled. He longed for a real home, for the love of a father. But he couldn't bear to destroy what Mr. Grant already had. He remembered his mother's words, to be kind, to think of others before himself. After a long, painful reflection, Ethan made a decision. He would leave. He would walk away from the father he had just found, and from the family he had dreamed of being part of. He didn't want to put Mr. Grant in a difficult position or cause more pain to those around him. Ethan stood up quietly. He looked back one last time at the peaceful little town, his eyes filled with sorrow and reluctance. Then he turned and walked toward the unknown. He didn't know where his journey would take him, but he knew. This was the best choice he could make, for now. These newly expanded chapters had become more complex, the emotions of the characters more layered and intense. If any part of the story needs further polishing, or if you have ideas about how the plot or style should evolve, feel free to share at any time. After learning about her husband's past and the possibility that Ethan might be his biological son, Linda Grant fell into deep anguish and fury. Her once happy and peaceful family had been turned upside down. In the days that followed, she lost her appetite, cried endlessly, and stared at her pale, exhausted face in the mirror, her heart filling with more bitterness by the hour. The atmosphere in the house became suffocating. Even the children sensed something was wrong. They tiptoed around, afraid to speak loudly. Mr. Grant tried his best to calm his wife. He came home early every day, patiently trying to explain things to her, but she wouldn't listen. Every conversation ended in an argument. When Linda's friends and relatives heard about what had happened, they all took her side, blaming Mr. Grant for everything. Her parents even came to the house and angrily confronted him, demanding he handle the matter properly or face the consequences. The mounting pressure from every direction left Mr. Grant emotionally drained. He realized his moment of carelessness had caused deep wounds to the people he loved. Even at work, he couldn't focus. Mistakes piled up, and his employees began to notice their boss was not himself. Rumors started to spread. Business partners, sensing trouble, began to reconsider their cooperation. The company faced serious challenges. Mr. Grant felt like he was standing in the middle of a storm, surrounded and completely lost on how to calm the chaos. And while all of this was happening, Ethan, the boy who had taken up so much of his thoughts, was gone. Without Mr. Grant's knowledge, Ethan had left quietly after receiving the mysterious letter, stepping into the unknown in search of truth. Mr. Grant, unaware, continued searching desperately for him, while the crisis at home worsened with no end in sight. After leaving Willow Creek, Ethan wandered from place to place. He didn't know where he was going. At night, he curled up beneath a cold bridge, staring at the stars above, silent tears falling down his cheeks. He remembered the brief warmth he had felt in Mr. Grant's home. It was something he had never known in all his years living on the streets, a feeling of belonging, of being cared for. He longed to truly become part of that family, to have a father who loved him. But then he remembered the pain in Linda's eyes, the heartbreak in her voice, and her fierce resistance. He began to feel like his very existence was a mistake. Ethan knew all too well that his presence had brought chaos to Mr. Grant's family. He didn't want to be the reason Mr. Grant was torn between love and responsibility, nor did he want to be the one who shattered a once happy home. Over and over, he asked himself, if Mom were still alive, what would she want me to do? He remembered her gentle lessons: be kind, think of others, and do what's right. After many sleepless nights wrestling with the pain, Ethan made up his mind. He would leave the city and vanish from Mr. Grant's life completely. He didn't want to cause any more trouble. What he truly wished for was that Mr. Grant's family could return to the peaceful, happy life they once had. Using a piece of discarded cardboard, Ethan wrote a short farewell letter. He placed it at the entrance of Mr. Grant's company building, then turned and walked away without looking back. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he believed this was the right choice. As he wandered, Ethan endured cold nights, hunger, and uncertainty. Yet in his eyes there was a quiet strength. He reminded himself, no matter how hard life would be, he had to keep going. Because this was the sacrifice he chose out of love. After days of searching with no sign of Ethan, Mr. Grant became heavier in heart. His efforts to explain things to his wife faded into silent endurance. He realized that only time could heal the wounds in her heart. Over time, Linda's emotions began to settle. Though she still held resentment, seeing her husband's tired face and the worried eyes of their children stirred something inside her. One day, while tidying up the study, she stumbled upon Ethan's farewell letter. Her hands trembled as she opened it, unsure of what she'd find. Ethan's sincere words struck her deeply. In the letter, he thanked Mr. Grant for everything and apologized for the trouble he had brought to the family. He explained that he chose to leave so that their home could be happy again. Tears blurred Linda's vision as she read his message. She suddenly realized how kind and thoughtful Ethan truly was. Neither he nor Mr. Grant had done anything wrong. It was fate that had been so cruel. Meanwhile, back at the company, Grant finally saw a breakthrough. A major project succeeded, and he regained the trust and praise of his business partners. The company began to recover, and with renewed confidence, he returned home, only to find Linda lost in thought. Mr. Grant gathered his courage and brought up Ethan once more with his wife. This time, Lynn didn't interrupt him with anger. Instead, she listened quietly. Mr. Grant spoke from the heart, expressing his deep love for their family and the guilt he felt toward Ethan. He told her he didn't want an innocent child to suffer again because of mistakes from his past. After hearing his words, Linda sat in silence, struggling with her emotions. Then, finally, she made a decision. Slowly, she lifted her head and looked at her husband's tired but hopeful eyes. "Let's go find Ethan," she said softly. Mr. Grant was stunned, a flicker of joy lighting up his face. He could hardly believe what he'd just heard. Linda continued, "I read Ethan's letter. That child, he's so kind, so thoughtful. He did nothing wrong. We can't let our own pride make him suffer again, and I don't want to see you in pain anymore either." Mr. Grant pulled his wife into a tight embrace, tears flooding his eyes. He knew, at last, she had let go of the resentment in her heart. So together, they began searching for Ethan. They retraced the paths he might have taken, asking around at every stop, posting missing person flyers wherever they went. After countless moments of disappointment, they finally found him in a quiet, remote town. When Ethan saw Mr. Grant and Linda standing before him, his eyes widened with shock and disbelief. Linda walked up to him and gently wrapped her arms around him. "Come home with us, sweetheart," she whispered. Tears streamed down Ethan's cheeks. He nodded, his heart bursting with emotion. Back in the city, the Grant family held a warm, welcoming celebration for Ethan. The children greeted him with open hearts, and the house was filled with laughter and joy. From that day forward, Ethan finally had a true home. Mr. Grant and his wife cared for him with all the love they had when trying to make up for the years he had gone without it. The photo of his mother, once the center of so many questions and pain, was now beautifully framed and hung on the living room wall. It became a treasured symbol of their journey, a reminder of how far they had come, from storm to sunshine. Together, hand in hand, they stepped into a future filled with hope. These expanded chapters added even more twists and turns, and the emotions ran deeper than ever. If you ever want to adjust the interactions between characters or give the ending a different tone or direction, I'm always here to help.